Welcome back, folks, to the Crimson Conversion here on the Penn Sports Network. I'm Jake Slabonic, joined by the bearded broadcasting himself, Jeff Hart, and the flow that glows, Stephen Lingen Jr. And yet we have another location change, but we are still within the Penn offices. And with some better audio, we're right back at it, and we're glad to be back here again this week for our second episode of the second season. Boys, let's jump right into it. The women's basketball team, they came out victorious against Mercyhurst, 81-56 the other day. Just another dominating performance by the Crimson Hawks. Carolyn Appleby led the campaign with 19 points, while Anna Holland shot 100% of the night, something that most people don't do, both in collegiate and professional sports, going 11 points, three three-point field goals, that is, and she was named our iup-tv Sports Player of the Game. Before we analyze it, here's the clip with Dylan Barkas interviewing Anna Holland.
We are live at the court with Anna Holland, today's Player of the Game. Anna, congrats on your incredible performance tonight. 11 points, 3 for 3 on 3 points off of the bench. How do you feel about your performance in today's blowout against Mercyhurst?
It feels good to go off the bench and hit shots. My teammates definitely found me in the right positions to put me in positions to score, so it felt really great.
That's really good. You're a part of a team that hopes to go beyond last season's success and prove you're the best team in all of D2. How does your team maintain its competitive nature against teams like Mercyhurst who just are not as competitive?
Every day Coach talks about coming in with a focus, not playing down to the teams that we're playing, so we just got to keep playing our game and the rest should take care of itself.
Anna, congrats on your performance today. Guys, back to you up there.
See, just a great interview altogether. Guys, what did you think about that game? I'll hear you starts off just.
Well, as far as the game goes, I think Mercyhurst played their hearts out. They did the best they could. It was just a matter of IUP women's basketball just having another dominating performance. And what I liked the way we saw from Anna Holland, and I kind of talked about it last show, she minimized her memory lapses because we saw a lot of times from her when she would come onto the court that she would have a couple turnovers, not really direct the passes correctly, but she really came on, and what we need is someone to relieve Carolyn Appleby. Like, she's the workload. She's the workhorse. We've talked about that show after show, 19 points on the night. But when she came off, Anna Holland stepped up in a big way.
Absolutely.
Along with, Brittany Robinson, Wallace Graves. They're all great players. But when you have someone who you can take off the bench and can give you great minutes, and Anna Holland literally had a perfect game, at least from the offensive side. You can't really ask for much more from a backup player. And obviously you have Courtney Alexander and other backups who are very skilled and talented. It's really comforting for the Crimson Hawks to know that Anna Holland is really starting to come into her own going forward.
Yeah, we saw in the beginning part of the season, even last season, Mardiana was really the sixth man to come off the bench, but since her latest injury, Anna Holland has really stepped up into that role, and probably the best performance of her career happened last game, of course going 100% from the field, and just looking like a stud out there, looking like she belongs almost like in the starting lineup when you have those players that come off the bench and really propel your team to an impressive victory once again for the Lady Hawks. Just an overall incredible performance, but we saw a lot of the same throughout the season with Brittany Robinson once again coming into her own, collecting those rebounds when needed. Saw Natalie Myers hitting those big shots when needed. Carolyn Appleby doing what she does best, driving to the hoop, dishing it out for assists, and just an overall a fantastic performance. And I think that this IUP Crimson Hawks team is looking extremely great. Going forward, we're going to be playing Cal one more time this season. I think that will be the big game. But other than that, you've seen all season long this women's team has been able to just dominate teams like they're really nothing.
And this is recorded before their February 6th game against Slippery Rock. They are only one win away from reaching the PSAC playoff race. No doubt they'll make it. They have a long schedule ahead of them, so they're able to tack on one more win. But you go back to talking about Anna Holland. She did start off the year just a bit cold. We didn't really. I think it's the first 2 games she looked hot, and then the mid part of the season she didn't look herself. But then last game proved otherwise, that she was able to turn the tide and get back on the way that she used to be. I always want to bring up again 100% from the field. That's something you can't do, especially 3 straight three-pointers made.
Well, and one thing I think that goes under the radar that Holland adds to the IUP squad is IUP has a couple people who are really effective from 3, like Natalie Myers and Wallace. We even saw a play where Courtney Alexander, who's not the best three-point shooter, she sits around 25, I believe, is her percentage. She passed it out to Wallace because she's a designated three-point shooter. Anna Holland's actually, before last night, was still a proficient three-point shooter. She sat around 50% before her performance she had the other night. So with that included, she's probably sitting around 55, 53, somewhere in there. So she adds long range shooting, which is really nice when like you don't have to like you can have someone else on the floor you can give the ball to, because not every player on that squad is a deep bomber like, you know, Appleby, Wallasick, Matt Myers, because Robinson doesn't go from three, Griggs typically doesn't. So
yeah,
it's
they're
nice
both
to have
down low
that.
threats. They're better posting up down low.
So it's nice to have some of that long range to come into the game and really help, you know, really ingratiated herself into the game plan and really, you know, makes it more dynamic for IUP.
Yeah, it seems as though she didn't play, like she played a lot of minutes. Obviously, you know, when you're up by that many, you tend to see a lot of the bench players. But as far as her season goes, I think she really came into her own from that three-pointer. I've seen some games that she's been able to hit them consistently, and then other games she's really struggled. And that was probably, like I said, that was probably the best overall performance I've seen by her. And that's what the IUP team needs going into these tough games. Later on in the season, you got the PSAC tournament, and then you're going to have the national tournament, which I'm about 99% positive they will make it at this point.
I think we all are at this point.
It would be hard not to. It would be hard not to.
They're dominating the PSAC and they're taking it by storm. There's no doubt they're going to make it in the national tournament unless something happens. They all fall apart, and you know, just teams come in and upset them. But that's really low to happen. I don't want to sound biased, but I'm playing logistics here. It's just.
It's almost impossible.
I mean, almost knock on wood, just hope no one gets hurt. Seriously, like if Appleby or someone went down, that would be a huge loss for the team.
All right, well, let's preview the road ahead. Again, this is recorded before the Slippery Rock game. It's definitely going to be a tough competition. It always is the big rivalry between IUP and Slippery Rock. However, it's going to be more of a challenge for the men's team, so we'll get into that a little bit later. What Steven said earlier is that the Cal game is going to be the biggest challenge for them going forward. They are second in the PSAC Western Division, and they are IUP's only loss. That last loss coming back here at home. So they not only are they tasked with winning on the road at Cal, they also need they need to win in order to make sure that they secure top dog in the PSAC West. And then also after that, they play Edinburgh, who's the third team in the West. IUP defeated them 93 to 73 last time, but again, that's on the road, so it's going to be a big road trip coming up for the Crimson Hawks women's basketball team. I'm looking forward to it. I think that Cal U game is going to be the toughest one, but hey, can't take any game lightly.
Yeah, well, you have a Cal U team, not to mention that last week lost to Shippensburg. It was the first ranked opponent that Shippensburg women's team has won against since 2009, and they beat them by 11 points. So Shippensburg is not going to be an easy opponent. Their record says 9-11, but their team says that they can do a lot better, especially coming off that California University of Pennsylvania win. And I think that this is going to be a very, very tough matchup for this Crimson Hawks team. You know, all the confidence is going towards both teams. It's just going to be a chess match of who's going to be able to put the pieces in the right place to win.
Well, one thing I think going forward into the latter parts of the season, in any sport, coaching is what it comes down to. Because your players are going to start to get tired. You're going to see a lot more of your bench. You're not going to see that same level of, not production per se, but that same level of athleticism that you saw, because naturally, as an athlete, you're going to wear it out, especially in a sport like basketball where the season is so long and demanding on the athletes. And we have a great coach in McConnell. He does a great job with that team. We've talked to him multiple times. Dylan did a great job interviewing him. He's always willing to let people see and get insight on the team. And I think IUP has a chance because Cal really came up on IUP because they were a fast team. They were athletic. They were really good. And
Very comparable. Very comparable.
Defense. It was their defense like IUP, because IUP has one of the best defenses in the PSAC, and Cal was just on them the entire game. But I think what will help IUP, especially in this one, they know what to expect. I think they got overwhelmed the first time really quickly, and they had never really dealt with that this season, where they got just overwhelmed. Their shots weren't going in. Appleby missed a couple open layups. You could just tell that they were flustered. They came back better in the second half, but they didn't look like their normal self. So I really think this next game against them will either just be a typical IUP game in the fact that they dominate, or it will just be a very close game. But I really do think IUP will come away with the win in that matchup, and that's not an arrogance thing or homerism. It's just a matter of, I think they're more prepared this time.
Yeah, especially since they have the game tape. They know what their mistakes were. They know how to fix those mistakes. And like you said, McConnell is one of the best coaches probably in the PSAC. He's been around the game for a very long time.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but he was a dominant coach over at St. Francis University in Loretto. He was one of the best coaches in history there, and then he comes to IUP, brings his talent there, and it shows right there. He's a leader. He knows how to structure his team pretty well. So, and I'm going to go back to what Jeff said about them being more prepared. Guys, we saw in the beginning of the season they played really no competition. Everyone else was probably in the bottom end of the standings right now. So that Cal game was the toughest thing, and I don't think they were ready for it just because they were so used to just no competition. So again, I think I'm going to agree with you guys. I think they were more prepared going into this matchup or going into these final weeks. That, and they also know what's on the line. They want to secure first place. They want to have home field advantage. It's gonna be nice. So I expect great things from the Crimson Hawks going forward.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, well, let's transition over to men's basketball. Guys, it was a heartbreaker at the KCAC as the men's basketball team dropped the game to Mercyhurst on a buzzer beater, but I will say it was not surprising in the least bit. The Mercyhurst is not only third in the West, the PSAC West that is, but quite honestly, IUP did not come out of the gates firing. They played back, they played down to their opponent in the first half. They sat back, played conservatively, and they let Mercyhurst walk all over them. If you guys watched the game on IUP Athletics, Mercyhurst just came out and they looked like they had a fire under their the entire time.
Well, they absolutely dominated IUP in that first half. That second half, IUP did come back. Like they are a very good second half team, but just wasn't enough towards the end. And I think they gave them too much time on the clock. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that buzzer beater in a little bit.
Well, listen, I'm all for being a conservative team, but this is the later part of the season. You have your playoff hopes on the line. And if you want to make sure you go far, you need to win as much as possible. You can't worry about playing conservatively the first half. And if that's not your game plan, then find something to fix it. That's all I got to say.
So, as far as there is one thing about this loss that actually truly bothers me, and that number is 10. 10%. 10% from 3 in the first half, Jake. That is what IUP went. That is deplorable. And the only reason I am saying this is because we know the Crimson Hawks are capable of so much more. They have excellent coaching. Coach Lombardi is a good coach. They have people who can shoot the 3. Malik Miller, Armoni Foster, Dante Lombardi. And to be quite honest, it's disappointing to see that level of performance because to me, I understand not shying away from the 3, and I agree to a point that you should not stop. But clearly in that first half, you saw it wasn't working, and yet religiously we saw the players kept going back to that. So I would have liked to have seen something different, game plan change in that first half of gameplay. Because in the second half, I really did like them coming out, and then they shot better. They improved their three-point percentage to around 27, somewhere in there. But here's another thing I saw. Mercyhurst, Maxwell, their guard. IUP I've noticed has a hard time with really fast, athletic guards.
And Nelson Maxwell
He was driving.
He was
all the time.
And you saw he was on.
handling skills were pristine.
Well, and I said coming into the game if you listen to the games on IUP Athletics Stretch Internet, you should totally tune into that. You can catch. I was about to say you can catch me and Jay commentating the game. Steven works on graphics and did a beautiful job on those. I even said, a few minutes into the game, Maxwell's really fast. They need to watch out for him. And sure enough, he dropped, I believe, 17 on the night, and the average is 12. So, you can I saw that moment going into the game. IUP has a harder time with guards who are really fast because IUP sometimes plays very slow-paced defense. It's the way they play because they rely on their size on defense because you have Kovacevic, Kobo, Brunwick. You have guys who can get up there and just block. But when you have guys setting the pick and roll, because Mercyhurst went to the pick and roll for a majority of the game.
And they got burnt. The IUP got burnt on it.
Yes, the pick and roll, just all the game you could see pick and roll over and over, and Maxwell took advantage of that. And so, like I said, if it wasn't for that blaring, goose egg in the three-point guard, just to me, 10%. That is just because you're such a talented team, I wanted to see more. And that's not to rub salt into the wounds for IUP. Other than that, I really did like the one thing I saw. They showed me resilience coming into the second half, that even though they had the first half, that is something to kind of forget. That second half, they came out of the gate strong. They came back from a 10-point deficit.
They looked like a totally different team.
Yeah, and to me, that shows resilience and made them look stronger. I think they got very humbled. I think that's the right word here. I think IUP came into the game a little strong and up on themselves, and I think they were just a little humbled. But we have all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of how are we going to use it, because we have the players and the coaching to do it.
All right, Jeff, yeah, they do have the team to do so. So let's look a little bit ahead into the future. IUP plays Slippery Rock on February 6th. We'll have an update for you in the next edition of the Crimson Conversion. Reminder: the men, their first loss was at Slippery Rock. They're also second in the Western Division. So it's going to be a tough competition. They need to win this, folks. They need to come out on top in order to do this. We'll have, like we said, we'll analyze it next week. And then they also travel to UPJ on February 13th. They're fourth in the West. They won back on January 5th by a score of 86-73. UPJ was projected to be one of the toughest teams in the PSAC West in the men's division. So it's gonna again, it's like the women. It's gonna be a tough road schedule for them. I think they're gonna be able to do it. Quite honestly, it's just if they can win at home against Slippery Rock, it's gonna be smooth sailing the rest of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. Slippery Rock and IUP both 12-2 in the PSAC right now. So we're going to be looking at a very, very tough opponent. Slippery Rock is now earning some votes in the top 25 rankings. IUP, with that loss, drops down to number 6. First time out of the top 5 for quite a long time, it seems so, this season. But I think this IUP team has learned a lot from that loss, and I'm looking very forward to seeing that game. I'm looking forward to, seeing how they do and being able to talk about it here on the Penn Sports Network. But I really do think that they're going to come up on top, and I really do foresee if they win this game against Shippensburg, I believe that we will have a very good chance of hosting that PSAC tournament here in Indiana.
Well, to be quite honest, guys, I think the outcome of IUP season rides on the Slippery Rock game.
It does.
Here's why. Not because of playoff contention, I don't care about any of
Reputation,
that.
really.
It's a matter of mentality. Sports is a mostly mental thing. It's a profession. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's mental. And to me, they're coming off a really heartbreaking loss where it could have went either way. They fought their hardest to get back into the game. They did, and then it was all for nothing. And they thought they had won when Malik Miller hit that last second shot, but it still wasn't enough. So to play their rival Slippery Rock, who was their first loss, if they win, that is going to be a catalyst going forward. It's kind of like putting away their inner demons. They beat the first team that beat them, and then their schedule is easier going forward, going into the playoffs. However, if they lose against that team again, it'll be their bugaboo going forward, and also that's 2 consecutive losses in a row. So that can really deflate a team going into the rest of the year. So even like let's say they lose to Slip and they win out, whenever they see Slip or Mercyhurst, that's going to be a problem in the playoffs because mentality they have the edge. I mean, you hear it in professional sports. Joel Embiid says, "I have real estate in your mind," and that's so true in the world of sports or even just in life in general. If you're thinking about it, it can be a problem. So I really think a lot of the season depends on this game.
I really do believe that it depends on how the Crimson Hawks come out too, because we've seen in both those losses that they have came out rather sluggish, to say the least, and try and come back in that second half. And we all know in basketball that it is very hard to be able to come back in a game and to be able to win. Even though we've seen so many times by this Crimson Hawks men's team, it's just one of those things that it's almost impossible. I don't want to say impossible, but it's a very difficult road if you're going to be down by, even 5 to 7 points in that first half to really come back and trying to solidify a win.
All right, well, it's going to be a tough road going forward for IUP. Let's see if they can do it. We'll have a recap on the Slippery Rock game next week on the Crimson Conversion here on the Penn Sports Network. But in conclusion, wrapping up this episode, thank you all for tuning into this one. Glad to be back. Again, we'll be back. Remember, TPSN airs every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. with new Crimson Conversion. We are also going to be starting a new side project called Off the Court, an in-depth sit-down with IUP athletes. Most likely, the first guests on the show will be Kobo Diaz and Carolyn Appleby, as they have already expressed interest. So it's going to be some good stuff going forward. But also, if you cannot tune into that, make sure to listen to Sports Talk Live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on WIUP-FM 90.1, your alternative source. Jeff, Steve, and I will most likely be on the Friday episode. Jeff, I know, will be bouncing around here and then, but each show is a good show to listen to. Of course, read the Penn. The new issues come out every Tuesday and Friday. It's just some good stuff. Also, check out some other of the Penn casts. I know my personal favorite would be Chicks Chatting That. I love that show every time. It's just so hysterical. Penn Penncast is a good one too. It's a new one. Culturecast is great. Hot Take Jake Taylor, Nick Tedeschi, and Mike Costa give their thoughts. Just great stuff all around. And then with in conclusion of this episode, we're going to start something new by leaving off with the top plays of the week. So here you go. Here are the top 3 plays from the Mercyhurst game. And until next time, see you then.
Down low, so she'll just pass it along the perimeter as Caroline Appleby might be able to find something, gives it off to Tiara Preston. Lexi Griggs, double team down low. Able to drive in, gets the basket.
Need it too, because she gets the and one and fights through the contacting.
Circling the perimeter, tipped away by Lombardi. It's a 2-on-1 disadvantage for the Crimson Hawks. Changing lanes, puts it up, and in, and IUP scores now. Again, Armoni Foster driving down low, finds Malik Miller, who will drive himself down the right side. Kovacevic slams it down with authority. IUP still down by 2, however. And they'll stop play just for a moment.
Hey, 2 questions about your laptop. 1,
Sure.
did it need to update software?
No.
Okay, because it just completely the bed on us. Like it stopped, like it just crashed and restarted. Has it ever done that with you before?
No.
All right. And second, which account do you use Logic on? Is it the Penn or yours?
The pen.
One, all lowercase.
Password. Yep, password.
All right.
Alright, sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good. We'll see what we can do, if we can revive any audio or something like that, and we'll go from there.
Alright, sounds good, man.
All right. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Ah!